Hi guys, Freddy here. With the recent Picard series and the ongoing Star Trek Discovery and Orville series coming up to new seasons, Star Trek is very vogue recently, and I've seen a few videos online talking about Star Trek games and generally how poor they are. Well, first of all, I'd like to disagree. Down mainly to Star Trek Armada 2, a game which I'm still playing 19 years after its release, but also down to Star Trek Online. Star Trek Online was released in 2010, and is an MMORPG and has a free-to-play element since 2012. Now, I generally don't like playing online with other people. I much prefer my computer gaming to be a solitary hobby. And that's one of the reasons why I actually like Star Trek Online. It has many different single-player campaigns and missions, which allow me to be the socially isolated gamer that I prefer to be. The game has various factions, and I think possibly the best way to introduce them is to go through my various captains of the different factions, as the game allows you to have quite a few different characters, all free of charge. First up, we've got my oldest character, Rilla, who's an Andorian, who has a mainly Andorian crew. She's a Next Generation era character who I played through the campaign against the Borg and various other events until she reached Admiral. She currently commands a Sovereign class starship, much like the Enterprise in the movies. And she's seen here with her first officer, chief engineer, head of science, and Vubu, who's of an alien race I created in-game, but more on him later. Next up, we've got Movu, who is of the same race as Vubu, and is a Discovery-era Starfleet captain. Playing through the Age of Discovery campaign and interacting with characters from that series and dealing with the Klingon War from the series' first season, she leveled up to level 10, upon which the campaign ends, and your ship is transported forwards in time to the same time period as everyone else. You're supposed to discard your uniform and update it, but I liked keeping her and her crew in the original uniforms. And next we've got Tolotu, my original series era Starfleet captain. I also played through that campaign up to level 10, on which she was also transported to the same time period as the others. One of the problems with the game I've found, as it dumps you into the next gen time period, or rather around 14 years after the movies, and forgets about it completely. So in one mission where my ship travelled back in time to the original series, Tolotu was treated as being out of time, when in reality she was back in her own time. And next we've got my Klingon captain, Talon, and the Klingon faction is better developed than many of the others, with its own missions and campaigns throughout. However, these are far less developed than the Starfleet ones, so you find yourself drafted into Starfleet missions all too often, which really is a problem, since the game has so many promising starts, with the campaigns feeling different and interesting, but all too soon you're just dumped into the late game, which is all pretty much the same. Also, very briefly, I've got a Dominion captain, Armatora, but even though he's level 65, which is as high as free play can go, I've not even completed one mission with him, as the Dominion characters start off at a very high level, and using some of the things which become available in the late game, I managed to level him all the rest of the way. And finally, we've got Chak, my Romulan admiral, and the Romulans have one of the most interesting beginnings to a campaign I've seen in the game. Your character comes from a colony world where the Romulan refugees have fled after the destruction of Romulus in the 2009 Star Trek movie. And you begin just doing small quests within the streets of this shanty town, where people are just trying to survive as part of the new Romulan Republic, when the settlement comes under attack by the Tal Shiar, who are trying to reforge the Romulan Star Empire. A friend reveals he's got an original era Romulan bird of prey hidden out in the asteroids around the planet, which you take command of and defend the settlement. The campaign takes you through defending against the Tal Shiar, but later on you get to choose who the Romulan Republic allies with to protect itself, the Klingons of the Federation, and then you're just into the same late game as everyone else. Now as you level up, you get moved up to higher ranks, which can open up more powerful ships to command, and more crew slots to recruit into, but the game just doesn't let you choose from various types of ships. It also lets you take the basic design and modify it by using parts from similar vessels, adding saucer sections from one and engine nacelles from another, topped off with your own choice and paint jobs. Some of these cost real world money, but most are free. As I continue to talk, the gameplay I've recorded shows me messing around with the Starship Designer, looking at some of the ships in my fleet and playing around with various uniform designs, some from the series of movies, others you can choose yourself. Now there are a couple of things I've mentioned which really come into their own in the late game, that really help flesh out the game as well. As I mentioned, you level up and gain new crew members. Well, some of these crew are what are called duty crew. Now these aren't the bridge crew members you tend to see in the various series, these are the grunts below decks which do the actual work. and as you go up in levels you gain the ability to send these on missions, which can also get you experience and resources. So you'll get to send a few to train with weapons for a few hours, or you'll send them off to make diplomatic deals with different races. And as I mentioned, as you level up you get bigger and better ships. But as you reach Admiral, you get to send your old ships in your fleet on missions as well. Now these two things are really quite simplistic, but using these were how I managed to level my Dominion character up through the levels, and definitely a part of the game which kept me logging in on a regular basis, as even if I didn't want to play the game, checking in to assigned duty missions and Admiralty missions always felt worthwhile of a quick 10-minute session of the game. As you complete missions, as well as getting unique crew members and equipment for your ship, such as more powerful weapons or Borg shielding etc., you also get mementos, which you can decorate the inside of your ship with, giving every player a personal home for their stuff from the very beginning. But what I really wanted to talk about was the missions in Star Trek Online, as they really pick up on storylines left hanging from the various series. Being a big Deep Space Nine fan, I adored that there's a mission where you have to retrieve an Orb of the Prophets, only to discover that it's a mirror universe one, which you have to restore to that universe. And more than that, I absolutely flipped over the 2800 campaign. In Deep Space Nine, Captain Sisko asks the Prophets to help fight the Dominion when a fleet of 2,800 ships are passing through the wormhole. They help, but by sending that fleet to another point in time. The 2800 has that fleet reappear, emerging from the wormhole some decades later, and beginning the Dominion War once again, forcing you to go ask the Dominion of your time for help, meeting the changeling who's been imprisoned for all those years, and finding her not exactly full of compassion for your situation. And things like that are where Star Trek Online excels, tying into storylines from episodes. I was likewise overjoyed in one mission I played recently, where my character had to flee through a gateway from an alien attack to protect a number of ambassadors, including Ambassador Worf. When we emerged from the gateway we found ourselves in a scientific laboratory in subspace, one that Worf finds hauntingly familiar, as it was there that he and other members of the Enterprise crew were taken and experimented on in the Season 6 episode Schisms. And of course, for this campaign, Michael Dorn returns and voices Worf. Star Trek Online is filled with returning cast members, from Leonard Nimoy and Walter Koenig of the original series, through Denise Crosby, Michael Dorn, Zachary Quinto, Chase Masterson, who does a wonderful turn as the evil Mirror Universe leader, Tim Russ, Garrett Wang, Robert Picardo, Jerry Ryan, Ethan Phillips, Robert Duncan McNeil, the late Aaron Eisenberg and Rene Auberjonois, Tony Todd, J.G. Hertzler, LeVar Burton, Armin Shimmerman, Nana Visitor, Alexander Siddig, Jeffrey Coombs, Max Grodenchik, Andrew Robinson, Jason Isaacs, Anthony Rapp, Sonequa Martin Green, Mary Wiseman, and even Christopher Doohan from Star Trek Continues, voicing the character made so famous by his father. I don't think there's ever been such a collection of Star Trek alumni brought together for any project, even one of the live-action movies. There's an entire campaign built around the Ambassador-class Enterprise having ended up in Tholian space after the Next Generation episode Yesterday's Enterprise, and changes history so the Tholians have conquered the Federation. So you must help rescue their crew and free them to restore history, all while interacting with members of your own crew in this alternate version of history. We also get the Iconians, a species mentioned throughout Next Generation and Deep Space Nine as one long lost in history, detailed and brought into the campaign with an interesting backstory, which the player truly gets involved with, making them not just another set of bad guys, but ones who have an understandable reason for what they do, and a tragic backstory. And it's taking these ideas and fleshing them out, which is one of the ways that the game really tells excellent stories. There's one particular mission where you are betrayed, and everyone I've spoken to about it truly felt betrayed and didn't see it coming. As the game has set up such a pattern of introducing characters and then giving you them as crew members, that in this particular case you just think that this character is just another in that pattern. I'm really keeping this vague so as to not spoil the twist for anyone who goes on to play the game, but everyone I've spoken to about this really felt a bond with the NPC and truly hurt by the betrayal. Star Trek Online really is a triumph of storytelling over gameplay, however, as the game itself has major problems, from glitching characters to uninspiring ground and space combat. The system also lets you break it somewhat easily. For example, Vubu, my alien character I mentioned earlier, I decided should have the maximum length of arms, as I thought his species would be physically somewhat orangutan-like, but that means in cutscenes his hands are too long and flail through control panels. My Discovery Era captain, Umwomvu, is also too tall for cutscenes, and hilariously her height means that most NPCs stare straight at her chest, and Tuvok in one particular cutscene did a Vulcan mind meld straight onto her bosom. But the game just keeps me going back. The story feels epic and really made me feel like my captain is taking part in a unique storyline, even though I've since discovered with later characters that it's all too easy to blast through all of the campaigns on your way to level 65. Anyway, I just thought I'd share something about a game I love, one which I think tells Star Trek stories as brilliantly as anything Star Wars has done. It's not a perfect game, not by a long shot, but I certainly don't think it deserves the abuse it's been given lately. It's free, you're locked up for a while, so why not give it a go, and you may find it to be a load of fun too. So, as always, many thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe if you like what I'm doing, but most of all, you look after yourselves, and I'll catch you later. Bye.